Welcome to NinjaCast, a photography podcast powered by Studio Ninja, the world's highest rated business management app, built specifically for photographers. Listen and learn as the most successful photographers on the planet share their knowledge to help you transform every element of your photography business. Here's your host, Sally Shaw.
Hi guys, welcome to NinjaCast. Today I'm joined by the awesome Laura of Love Biz Academy. We're going to be covering all sorts today, from how perfection can kill your business rather than drive it forward, right through to shifting your money mindset. Let's get started. Hi Laura, how are you?
Hey, I'm good, thanks.
Good. I'm so happy to have you on the show. Thank you so much for carving out some time to come and chat with us.
Thank you for having me. And how good is the power of Zoom that it gets to be like your morning and my evening? It's like, yay.
I know, different sides of the world, and yet here we are.
I know, exciting stuff.
I love it. So Laura, for our guests that might not have heard of you, especially us over the pond here in the UK, can you give us a little bit of background, who you are, what you've done in the industry and what you're up to now?
Yeah, so I started out as a wedding celebrant back in kind of like early 2018, and, just like we all do, completely fell in love with the wedding industry. And at that point in time, I was similar to a lot of creatives, like where you start your kind of side hustle and you're still working like another job at the same time. And that's what I was doing too, like kind of trying to juggle my 9 to 5 gig with the government, like my corporate job, with weddings, which is no easy feat when you're kind of with couples every single weekend, at weddings every single weekend, and then kind of like meetings and prep and planning and creative stuff every evening. So it kind of got to the point where I realized how much I loved it, obviously way more than my day job, as we all do. But it's just really hard to juggle both. And I knew I wanted to go all in. So when I had my first baby in 2020, that was like the catalyst for me to be like, do you know what? It's not going to be possible for you to be a mum and do the thing you love and go back to like a corporate desk job. It's just not going to work. So I pretty quickly ditched the day job and went all in on being a wedding celebrant and took that business full time, which was so good. And then, and during that process was when I kind of realized sometimes, quite how difficult it is, being a solo business owner, to work out how to do all the things by yourself. And we've got a pretty awesome community of wedding celebrants over here in Australia, but not really any support in terms of the business aspect and the business side of things. So I was quite literally on maternity leave. I think my little boy was 3 months old. And I kept hearing all of these same stories from other wedding vendors about how hard it was and they didn't know where to start and what to do. So it was at that point that I created the Love Biz Academy, which is basically like an online platform for wedding suppliers and creatives all around the world to connect. So we've got an awesome free community, but we also run courses for people who want to start their business and don't know where to start, or take it from side hustle to full-time thing, and also big kind of mastermind programs and coaching and stuff like that. So yeah, I absolutely love it. And my ethos, being a mum and juggling all the things, is let's try and work smarter, not harder.
Absolutely. Don't we all need
if that's possible in the wedding industry? Is that a thing? Yes, it is. I think we can make it a thing, especially with COVID. It's kind of changed the public's perception of what a wedding is. So I think now is the time for wedding vendors to be right, I can really shake up my business and make this a bit different now. And it doesn't have to be hustle every weekend anymore,
Yeah, definitely. It gives you that opening, doesn't it, to just tweak your business to suit you, to suit your lifestyle. I can imagine, when you had your first child and, also your second, all of a sudden life changes at home, right? And maybe that business that was working great before is actually, really taking its toll now.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Tell me about it. And I mean, that rings so true for me, right? My second baby, I had literally just weeks ago. So every time these big things happen, it shifts and changes in your mind, what your priorities are for life and your business. And that's okay. Like, and it doesn't matter, like, whether you're a parent or not, we all go through seasons of life and changes, and things kind of shift, and we grow and we learn. So yeah, I think we shouldn't be afraid of pivoting and changing and shaking it up a bit.
Absolutely. So, I mean, congratulations on your second born, just a couple of weeks ago. How are you all sat here on a podcast and not like living mum life on the sofa? I do not know.
I know. And I'm like, if people are listening and they can turn up the volume loud enough, they'll probably hear baby screams and toddler screams down the corridor somewhere. They're there, they're here. But yeah, you just kind of, you make it work, if that's your passion and that's your thing.
Absolutely. So, I mean, you must have all the tips and all the secrets to be making it work this successfully, Laura. So what are your top tips for listeners that are maybe, maybe they've just become a mom, maybe they've had their baby a little while ago, maybe they've got a toddler, a child at school. What are your mum tips for keeping business thriving while still being a mum?
I think, and like, I'm still learning myself, and like it's changing now that I've had two. Like the things that I implemented when I had one, I'm now even having to zhuzh a little bit now I've got two. But like the main thing is probably just like being really realistic. Like you've just like, and I've had to learn this myself, to just not put the pressure on myself and just think about the fact that you will have less time available. Like you just naturally will. Like there's a small human or multiple humans who like need your love and attention and need all the things. So your day is suddenly jam-packed with not just you and the business anymore. So I think realizing that you've got much less time and then trying to prioritize what you can do in the finite amount of time that you have. And I still have to like pep talk myself like daily about this, because sometimes I will come and sit here and I have all these grand plans of stuff I'm just going to get done, and you just don't, because all of a sudden my work has gone from like a full day, like a full chunk of time, to doing it in little tiny nap windows. And sometimes the days don't go to plan because there's a poo explosion or there's something else, and you're like, I got nothing done today. So I think I just try to pick just one thing that I want to get done for that day. And I would recommend like everyone tries to make that something that's, probably going to make them money in their business or move the needle forward in their business, like something that's actually going to make a bit of a difference. And if you can, just outsource the rest. Outsource the things that you can to other people, and just do the things that only you can do, like those kind of CEO tasks or the money-making tasks. And it can seem daunting, I think, outsourcing stuff, but like I've now become the queen of just outsourcing business and life. Like, don't be afraid to outsource life stuff. Like, get someone to come and do the cleaning or the cooking or the childcare if that gives you some you time or some business time. And yeah, just try. And also another tip for me that I've kind of learned is like batching tasks. So trying to do stuff in blocks. And I'll try and do similar things together in those nap windows rather than dabbling. Like before I had kids, I was a notorious faffer. I would do a lot of dabbling and a lot of just ducking around. And I don't think you realize how much time you waste, like going from admin to maybe editing to maybe like responding to some emails to, invoicing or whatever. But you do. So yeah, try and just batch stuff and just be really kind to yourself, because like you don't have as much time and priorities will just kind of ebb and flow and change,
Sure, definitely. I mean, by the time this ends, as you already know, Laura, I will have had my first baby. So this could be the more perfectly timed podcast episode for me, because I'm sure me in 1 month will be sat here listening to your podcast going, yep, I hear it. I understand it all. I'm right there now. But the one thing I think I'm going to struggle with, I'm a bit of a perfectionist. Things always have to go to plan and I have to complete my to-do list. And I think a lot of business owners, mum or not, a lot of business owners are like that. Your business is your baby in some respects, isn't it? So we've all got that little perfectionist inside us in some way, shape or form. I know that you speak about in the academy and when you mentor photographers, you speak about kind of waiting for perfection can kill your growth, it can kill your business. Let's delve into that a little bit more, especially for me, but for our listeners too, how is that possible? How can being a perfectionist stop things in their tracks.
Yeah, and like I totally agree with you. Like I was exactly the same, and like honestly, as soon as you become a mum, like that's the biggest lesson in like nothing has gone to plan now. Like all the plans are out the window. But when you've got the time on your hands, you do a lot of faffing. Like I was a notorious perfectionist, like tweaking irrelevant things in Canva, going onto my website, like zhuzhing stuff that I didn't really need to. And I think like what I've learned is like if we're honest with ourselves, like perfectionism is actually just like another form of procrastination. It's just another way of us to like put off doing the thing or putting ourselves out there or whatever it is. It's just us kind of like holding ourselves back half the time. And there's always a reason why we're trying to make things perfect, right? It's because it's because we're worried or we've got fears about, putting that new package out there or trying that new thing, or it's all self-doubt and stuff like that. So I think we've just got to remember that like there actually is no way for anything to ever be perfect. Yeah. Which means, and especially in this industry, that if you're spending a lot of time trying to make things like, like perfect, you end up just killing your own creativity, and then you end up overthinking things too much, and then you'll never be satisfied, you'll never feel accomplished, and you just kind of get, burnt out and stressed. So I think what I've learned is obviously you just can't get any results if you're not taking action. And the more you're trying to perfect things, the less action you're taking. So if you're spending hours and hours trying to write perfect captions for social media, like just get your message out there, like whether it's like perfect or not, just post it, put it up, doesn't matter if it's got typos, like you can always go back and fix stuff up later, So whatever you're doing, just try and take some action, because otherwise, and I don't know if other people, just losing myself, if other people feel this too, or they've had this experience, but you get into this kind of cycle where you spend so long trying to make everything perfect, which means you don't take action and you have no momentum in your business. And then because you're not taking action, no one's booking you, or you're not getting any results, or you're not getting any leads. And then you trick yourself into thinking that all happened because it wasn't perfect in the first place. Yeah. So then the cycle happens again. So you're like, oh, well, I best go make it perfect. So then whatever. So a mentor of mine a few years ago always used to say like, Laura, done is better than perfect. And like, so I now will like, share that with all my clients. I'm like, just get it done. Like, just, it doesn't matter if it's not completely right yet or whatever. You kind of want progress over perfection, essentially, rather than just wasting all your time making it, pretty imperfect.
Absolutely. And there's so many elements to what we do, right? There's not just the website or the social media or the editing of images or, the booking of clients or, all the different things that wedding industry professionals have to do. It all kind of overwhelms in some ways, doesn't it? So that done is better than perfect is literally the takeaway of today already. It's one of those things, isn't it, that I think a lot of us sit there and say, well, no, if we're going to put this out and this is going to be there for clients to see, it needs to be right. And it needs to be exactly as I want it to be. But actually, if there's nothing there in the first place because you're just sat perfecting it, then there's nothing to see for them in the first place anyway.
I know, and that's what I say to my clients all the time, because they're like, I need, I'm not getting any bookings, and it's because they've spent so long, tweaking their website, and I'm like, well, you're not going to get any leads if your website's not there to be found in the first place. So let's get it up, let's get, everything tracking and all of that kind of stuff first, and then you can spend time just, in those little windows, where you've got time to go back, just go back and tweak it and review it. And everything we do is always a continual work in progress anyway, because we're always learning and growing and evolving. So nothing that we ever create is kind of like finite and finished anyway. So I think it's nice to just spend some time going back and just zhuzhing and tweaking things anyway.
Definitely, yeah. It's that nice luxury, isn't it, then, when you've got it there and you think, oh, well, I've done everything I wanted to do today. I can go and fix that thing on Canva that I wanted to do for 10 minutes.
Yeah.
Before I finish for the day, that kind of thing.
And Canva is like, I love it. It's like a love-hate relationship, but it becomes a rabbit hole, because as soon as I open it up, I'll start with one thing, then I'll go to something else, and I'm like, oh my gosh, like, get me out of here, because like it just sucks me in.
It's that template section for me, because then if I click into that, I know I'm in like a black hole of doom, because then I'm like, oh, I'd not thought that I could do this, or that's given me a really good idea for this, or I've not even started this.
No, I think with things like that, that's why it's quite good if you've got a VA or someone you can outsource stuff to. It's the things that you know that might suck you into the faffing zone, or the I'm going to become a perfectionist and waste some time here zone. Like, they're the things that you should probably look to start outsourcing to someone else, because I know Canva is my kryptonite. So if there's anything that needs designing on Canva, I will give that to my VA, because she's a gun at that and she's amazing. And I know she'll get in there, do the task and move on. Whereas I'll get in there and, like you say, find something that I didn't even know I needed and waste 4 hours making it for no reason.
Yeah, absolutely. And then you look at it and you go, no, I don't like it. I'll start again.
I love it.
Into VAs a little bit with you, actually, Laura, because that's probably not something that we plan to talk about, but I think it's over here in the UK, it's kind of just emerging that, you know, outsourcing to a VA and that kind of thing is becoming much more popular and much more spoken about. I know kind of over in the US and Australia, New Zealand, like that's a totally regular thing, like completely normal. So how did you go from kind of being the worker bee, I guess, in your business, to thinking, actually, no, I'm gonna, you know, this is my business, I'm the CEO, you can do that, you can do that, you can do that. How did that shift go for you?
Do you know what, it was actually really hard, because when I worked in my day job, I would always get offered you know, like promotions to go and manage a team or whatever, and it was never something I wanted, was to have a team or to whatever. So when I had my own business, I was like, this is great, because it's just me and I can work for myself, and I don't have to, you know, give tasks to anyone or like be accountable to anyone or whatever. But you pretty much, once your business starts growing, and if you want it to grow and you want to scale it and you want to earn more money or take on more clients or whatever, like, you have to get comfortable with outsourcing stuff or building or growing your team, whatever that looks like for you. Because otherwise, like, I got to the point where I was actually like not being the CEO of my business. I was actually just being like an overworked employee in my own business. Like you said, wearing all the hats, doing the social media, doing the Canva, doing the invoicing, doing things that like naturally as creatives probably don't come to us like as easily as, like, you know, the photography or the being a celebrant or being a florist or whatever it is that we would do in the industry. So I probably waited until it was like too late. I honestly recommend to anyone in my programs now, like, as soon as they're feeling a little pull or a little stretch or a little too busy or start borderline overwhelmed, I always say straight away, like, honestly, like, hire someone or outsource to a VA or get some support, like, before you hit burnout. Because when you get way too overwhelmed, you kind of don't have the headspace then to like sit back and look at your business strategically and see what you need to outsource and what you don't. Whereas if you can catch yourself like in a really, you know, good headspace when things aren't too overwhelming, it's a bit easier then to go, right, what are like all the things I do in my business? So like, I recommend just like literally list out everything you do. And that is quite shocking. It's quite a shocking exercise when you go to that level of granular detail of like, holy crap, like, I'm more than just a photographer. Like, these are all the small things and the hats that I have to wear now. And then I kind of recommend looking at that and going, oh, well, like, which is the stuff that only I can do? And which is the stuff that I could give to someone else? And which are the things that like make me happy and light me up and kind of fall into my zone of genius? And which stuff isn't my strength? So like, I know updating my website or doing, you know, like back end stuff on there is just not my thing. Like, I can do it, but something that would take an expert 10 minutes would probably take me 10 hours. So I think you just have to work out what's the most cost effective option for you, and can you recoup some time back into your life or your business by giving that to someone who's an expert in it. So I really shut off to the idea of having a VA, just because, I don't know, like you say, your business is your baby, and you're like, you know, and probably the biggest factor is trust. Like, do I trust anyone but me to respond to email inquiries? Do I trust anyone but me to like edit in my style or communicate with my couples on my behalf? And you kind of like, again, it links to that perfection aspect where you kind of have to go, right, I'm going to shake off the perfectionism. And if you find a staff member that like aligns with your values and, you know, like ticks the boxes, and you onboard them in a way where they understand your brand and stuff like that, like it's totally fine. It's not that scary. And in fact, it's like really empowering, and I love it. I honestly couldn't live my life without my VA now.
I'll bet. Yeah, it's one of those, isn't it, where you think, one of those situations where you think, no, I couldn't possibly, and then when you finally take that jump and you're there and you're in it and you're doing it, you're like, how did I ever do it without?
Yeah, I know. And that's what I say to her all the time. I'm like, and I'll message her and be like, I'm just so grateful for you, because I just think, please don't ever leave me.
Yeah.
Like, please don't ever, how will I survive? But I think you could just start out. You don't have to take someone on board like permanently. I would suggest just like trying it out. And maybe even just start with the stuff that you feel a little less protective over, or the stuff that's a bit less risky to outsource. So like, you know, like really discreet tasks, or even just things in Canva where, you know, like, right, that's like a really easy thing to outsource. And just start with like an hour or two a week, or, you know, like a few hours a month. And, you know, it is a bit of trial and error to find the right fit for you. And you're probably, you know, going to have to kiss a few frogs until you find your VA prince or your perfect team or whatever. But eventually when it happens, you'll be like, this is a game changer for me. And it's going to free up so much time. Like, I just feel like, obviously now that I've got kids, I couldn't do it any other way. But for other people, it'll free up so much time for you to then do what you need to do in your business. And be the creative and be the money maker and the CEO and all of that stuff.
Amazing. Do you find that there's anything else that you kind of consciously do or consciously think about in terms of stepping into that, being the CEO and not being the employee?
A lot of it is like a bit of a mindset shift. Like, you almost have to train yourself into doing it. That's what I found. Like, it naturally just comes over time. And sometimes I'll go to do stuff and I'll be like, should I really be doing that? Or can I get someone else to do that? Like, you almost have to ask yourself, like, is this the best use of my time? Like, if I was in an actual business in the city, in an office or something like that, like, is this a job that they would give to like the CEO? Like, is this a $250 an hour like task? Probably not. And like, if it's not, can you pass that on to someone else? But yeah, I think if you start off by listing out the things that only you can do, or the things that are going to make you money or whatever, you can then just train yourself into thinking, anytime something comes up, you can be like, right, that needs to get passed on to someone else or whatever. And sometimes it's good to see how much time you've freed up in your week, or how much extra money that's made you or whatever. But it's a bit of a journey, really, like hiring a VA, or hiring, you know, like other shooters to come in and work for you, or even outsourcing your editing and things like that. Like, it seems really scary, and people are like, oh no, but what will my couples think if they find out like the editing wasn't done by me? Or, you know, what happens if someone comes and shoots the wedding that's not me? Like, is that still my brand or whatever? And like, you just got to do like what's right for you. And if you onboard them right and train them right and find the right people, it's all good. It's the best thing you'll ever do.
Yeah, I love that. I guess along with that kind of comes a bit of a shift with money mindset as well, right? You know, you're talking about these $250 an hour tasks, and is that suitable for you? But along with that, kind of, you have to shift you, like I say, your mindset when it comes to finances and money and things like that. So how can listeners perhaps take a little bit of that on board as well? What can they do to start that shift?
And yeah, I love this one, because like money is always that biggest, trickiest, ickiest conversation, isn't it? And no one wants to like say their fee to their couples. No one wants to start increasing their price, even though they should be charging more. And it all, like, it does come back to how you think and perceive like money and your worth and all of that stuff. And it's definitely one of the biggest blocks that I see to like my clients to try and grow and scale their business, is them not thinking that they're worthy enough, or especially those who are new to the industry automatically presume that they need to be like the cheapest around because they're the newest. Or a lot of people don't know if they're making a profit, so there's no kind of method to the madness in their fee. They're just kind of winging it. But I think it comes back to, I always say, like, who's actually to say like whether something is expensive or whether something is cheap, right? And it all comes down to people's perception. And I think quite often we put our own perceptions about money like onto our business, and the assumptions we make about like what our clients and couples will and won't pay for something. So it's about kind of getting out of the headspace of talking yourself out of changing your price just because like you think, oh, they're never going to pay that or whatever, and kind of shifting it more to, how can I change the messaging and marketing around this to showcase the value that's involved rather than the actual price tag. So I think the example I always use is like an expensive handbag, for example. So although I love like designer handbags, for me, at this stage in my life where my bags are used as a nappy bag, my perception around the value and the worth of that is, I don't want it because I know that it's just going to get destroyed, like with pooey nappies. Whereas like my friend, she wants to be able to buy that handbag. So like, I don't think it's expensive. I don't think it's cheap. I just don't see how that's going to add value to my life at this moment. Whereas in 5 years, when my kids are grown up and I don't need a nappy bag anymore, I would happily buy that. So I think it's about changing the perception that people have around like your products and your services away from like the price tag and onto the experience and the vibe and everything that you're providing for your couples.
Yeah.
Because like, as I said with the handbag, if you're promoting your photography services, for example, you've got to pitch it in a way that showcases what people are getting for their money. And you're never going to sell something to someone who doesn't see the value in that thing, no matter how cheap you make it. So like if you're trying to pitch to couples and they honestly don't care about getting nice photos for the day, it's not on their list whatsoever. They just want to have like music, booze and a party or whatever. You could make your photography services like free, or £100 or whatever, and they're still never going to buy that because they don't see value in photos or memories or moments or whatever. And I say this to Celebrant clients all the time. I'm like, you can keep discounting your services as long as you like, but if you've got a couple in front of you that doesn't see the value in their wedding ceremony and they really don't care about the ceremony components, they'll never pay your fee, no matter how cheap or how expensive it is. So I always say, try and shift your mindset, but try and also shift your messaging and your marketing to showcase the importance of that thing so you're appealing to the right people. So talk about the vibe, the experience, the status, everything, all the intangibles that they would get by purchasing that thing. And I think that's how you sell fancy cars. That's how they sell fancy handbags and expensive stuff, right? Because people want the experience and the status that comes with having that car or that handbag. And that would be the same for you. Like people want to get quality photos. So if you pitch it right, they'll pay whatever it costs to have the experience that they want. So I think it's about changing your mindset away from the fact that it's not the dollar value or the, you know, the amount that's attached to it. It's about, are you solving a problem for those particular couples, and is it something that they really, really want? Because if they do, like, they will pay it.
Yeah, 100%. I guess that also feeds into knowing who those couples are as well, right? You know, there's you know, the age old knowing your ideal client and knowing who that person is and marketing to that person. And I think a lot of the time, unless you've really nailed down who that, you know, what your ideal couple look like, you can be kind of throwing stuff at the wall and hoping it sticks.
Yeah, that's so true. And I say it's like the first question I usually say to people, like when they come into my programs and they're like, this is not working or this is not working, I'll be like, right, who is your dream couple? And most of the time, like, people haven't done the work, because I think a lot of us, when we start out especially, have this mindset of thinking, oh, if we just, in our marketing, if we just cast our net really wide, that'll get me more inquiries, right? But it's not the case, because as we just, you know, spoke about with trying to change your marketing and your messaging and things like that, if you're able to get clear on who it is that you're targeting and who are those couples that you just love working with, that light you up, that make you so happy, you don't want their wedding day to end, and you share the same values and all of that stuff, makes it so much easier to showcase like the value of what you have to offer to them, because you're talking straight to them. And I think it dictates pretty much everything, right? It dictates where you go market yourself. It dictates the messaging that you create, the content that you create, where you're going to go and find them, and your advertising and everything else, you know, like in between. So yeah, if you're listening and if you can't hand on heart detail all the demographics of your dream couple, or you know, like everything about them in terms of the type of day that they want, and you know, the things that they want for their wedding day and the things that they're scared about, or the things that they don't want, or the things that are stressing them out, like that's all the nitty-gritty that you need to know, because then you can basically pitch your services as the solution to all of those problems, which is what it's all about. And like I said, people will pay money if you can, you know, if you can solve their problems and make their day magical, essentially.
Definitely. And for listeners that perhaps think, oh yeah, guilty, you know, I maybe know that they're 25 to 35 and that they have a budget of 50,000 to spend on their wedding, but that's where my ideal client stops. How can they start that process again? How can they dig deeper?
I honestly just recommend getting a piece of paper and jotting down literally everything that you can about this fictional couple, like to the point where you want to be giving them like a name. You want to be able to picture them, like, my dream couple have got a name. I know that, like, she goes to F45 or tries to go to the gym every single evening after work, and I know what type of job she does. I know what salary she earns. So you kind of want to start with all of those demographics, because that's kind of the easiest part. Is, you know, like, typically, you know, what would your couple be doing for work? Do they have pets? How much do they earn? All the stuff about their lifestyle, like where do they hang out? How do they consume their information? Because for some of my clients, their dream couples are like in their 50s and 60s. So they're probably not going on Instagram. They're not consuming information on Instagram. So that helps us massively when it comes to their marketing plan, because we'll basically say, do you know what? You've probably got to get out to some wedding expos and wedding fairs, or boost the SEO on your website and stuff like that. So think about how they consume that information, what they like. Do they like trash TV, or do they like going to the bookshop, or all of that nitty gritty stuff? And just do a little bit of a mind map or whatever, and just dump it all down and get really clear on who they are. And honestly, picturing them in your mind's eye and giving them a name, like, kind of makes it a bit more like tangible and juicy. And then even sticking that up, like, in your office as a reminder, like every time you go and do something, think, have I written that in a way that would appeal to, like, Jimmy and Timmy? Are they going to read that blog post, or are they going to read that social media caption and think, oh, it's been written for them? And then from there, you can kind of deep dive a bit more about what type of wedding are they planning? Where is it? How much are they spending? What are their no-goes for the wedding and things they absolutely don't want? And what are the kind of non-negotiables and the things that they really want? And then what are the things they're struggling with? And use all of that to create your, inform how you create your services and packages. Because if they want this and don't want that, what can you offer them that ticks the boxes for them that is basically going to be like, heck yes, this is what I need.
Yeah, absolutely. I love that tip actually, because it's very much I think as business owners in general, not just photographers or florists or celebrants or, whoever's listening to this in the wedding industry, it's very easy to just think, well, a client's a client, right? Someone's going to pay me for my services. That's my client. But there's so much more to it, isn't there?
Yeah. And when you kind of create vague, broad messaging and create vague, broad services and products, they don't land with the people that you want them to land with. And sometimes it works for like other products, like, like if you're ordering a pizza on a Friday night or whatever, like it is what it is. I'll order whatever pizza from any pizza shop because the pizza's pizza. But I always say like, this is a wedding day. So instead of like people making logical decisions in their purchasing, they're making like emotional decisions because it's an emotional event. They're never going to do it again, like hopefully. So they're basically willing to go like all in on this. So if you are trying to piece together something that you think is going to sell to them and that's going to be really irresistible, you can't just pull together a blanket list of things that's the same as every other person in your industry and hope that it's going to land, because they're looking for someone that's going to bring the vibe they want, to provide the standard and quality they want, to help solve their problems, to make their wedding day magical and all of that stuff. So I think what I see often is, and like you'll see if you go onto like 10 photographers' websites and you see like what's included in their like signature package or whatever, it's just a list. It's a list of things that are included, and it says 8 hours of shooting and 500 edited photos and 10 prints and a USB and an engagement shoot. And like, if you're honest, like your dream couple actually doesn't give a crap about that list of things. Mm-hmm. Your dream couple might care about the fact that they're really nervous about having their photos taken and they think they're going to look goofy and awkward and they don't want to pose and they're really, really worried. So you're actually better off kind of switching up your messaging a bit and actually not talking about the list of things at all, because when it comes to what they're worried about for their day, whether or not you include a USB or like some prints is irrelevant to them. What they care about is that you're going to show up and take candid photos and be really supportive and guide them in their, guide them in their photo shoot, make them not feel like a goofball, and all of that kind of stuff. So yeah, I highly recommend everyone kind of does a bit of a audit every now and then of how they've written their packages and their pricing and all of that stuff, and change the messaging and the words and the info on your website and in your info packs and in your proposals to kind of focus more on the vibe and experience you're creating for people rather than just a list of things.
Yeah, 100%. Now, Laura, I'm not going to keep you too much longer because you've gone so in depth with all of those questions for me. Thank you so much. I know that you have a wedding supplier mastermind program coming up, so I'd love for you to tell us a little bit more about that, and if our listeners are interested, how they can get in touch and how they can get themselves on there.
Yes. So it's called the Love Biz CEO. So it's essentially for people who want to step into being the CEO of their wedding business. That's what it's all about. So we've got a whole bunch of suppliers in there at the moment, and it's open to anyone, whether you're a photographer, wedding planner. We've got people who are running their own venues, celebrants, and everything in between. And basically people who are wanting to grow and scale their business, but might be feeling a little bit stuck, or they've kind of, exhausted all the options of doing it alone. And it's basically a 6-month business transformation program. It's you and a load of other wedding suppliers. So you get obviously some great connections. We've got people in there at the moment from, all around the world. So it's actually really nice to see how vendors in other countries are doing stuff. And it kind of creates another level of like inspiration and innovation as well. So there's one-to-one coaching and mentoring from me included in that, plus group calls. We have monthly masterclasses from business experts, so we get those in to share their pearls of wisdom, and an amazing hub of kind of resources and trainings, and basically like everything that you need to kind of get stuff moving. And the premise is just to support you to create the business that you want. So for some people, it's quite literally something, you know, to have around their family and a bit more flexibility. And for others, it's about hitting those like 6 figures or 100K or whatever it might be. So yeah, if you are interested, then there is heaps more info on the website. So that's www.lovebizacademy.com.au, or just come and find me on Instagram and come say hello, and I'll answer your questions and send you the info. But we open up spots next month. Yeah, September is next month, so it's crazy. And yeah, the people in the program so far have been doing amazing things. Like if you want to get more eyeballs on your business, increase your income and stuff like that, it will be ideal. They've been featured on live TV, in Vogue, you know, all cool stuff like that. So yeah, it's where it's happening.
I love that. Fantastic. Amazing. Laura, before I let you go, is there anything that you would change about your journey or your career? Anything that you do differently?
Probably, I would say, I wish I'd known at the start how much like mindset work goes into running a business, because it's not until you're in the thick of it that you realize, like, actually daily you get faced with these imposter syndrome moments and all these things, you know, these waves of self-doubt, and we are all our own worst enemy, right? And I know that we all do it to ourselves, where these negative self-beliefs come in, and that's what stops the majority of people from like growing and scaling their business. Is like, it's ourselves. It's not the things around us. It's nothing else. It's literally just us talking ourselves out of doing things because we have a great new idea or we're about to do things. But then instead of thinking about the reasons why it could work or it could be successful, we end up thinking like, but what if this fails? What if this doesn't work? What will people think of me? What will people say? And then we just stop there and we never do the things. So yeah, I wish someone had said, oh, actually, like whether your business is successful or not is probably 90% mindset. And I think a lot of people think that there's like this silver bullet solution. A lot of people come to me and be like, right, what's the one thing I need to do to like get more money in my business? And it's actually just your CEO mindset, your money mindset, and just a lot of consistency and just taking a lot of messy action and all the things we've talked about. Don't be a perfectionist. Don't be afraid of outsourcing. And yeah, just don't block yourself. Just do the thing, like, and trust in it. So yeah, I wish someone had told me that at the start.
Love that. What a bombshell to end on. Laura, thank you so much for coming and joining us. It's been such a joy to chat with you. I've learned tons for mum mode in a few weeks and also for business mode too. So thank you for that. And I'm sure our listeners have learned loads too.
Amazing. It was so lovely chatting. Thanks for having me.
Absolute pleasure, Laura. Hopefully I'll catch you again soon.
Yeah, thanks, Sally. Bye.
Thanks, Laura. Bye. Okay, guys, that's everything from me today. Thank you so much to Laura for coming and joining us on the show and sharing all of her top tips. If you'd like to see the show notes, you can head to www.studioninja.co/episode 71. As always, please don't forget to rate us on the podcast platform that you're listening on. A little bit of love goes a very long way. I'll see you next time.
Thanks for listening to this episode of NinjaCast, brought to you by Studio Ninja. Beautifully designed and super easy to use, Studio Ninja will help you manage your leads, clients, shoots, invoices, contracts, workflows, and so much more. To learn more or start your 30-day free trial, go to www.studioninja.co.